Hello, everyone. Hey, Steve.
Hey, how you doing?
We're going to talk Cyclops.
Cyclops.
Cute. You know, you think Cyclops, you think like this big menacing beast. It's actually kind of cute.
I didn't really think it through that far. I just thought about the box, where it's going to sit, how you're going to use it, if you're going to put anything on top of it, you know. In a home studio situation, you know, you just pile stuff on top of other stuff. And I just thought, all we really need to do is have a foot switch capability, only it's not a foot switch, it's not a paddle.
Yeah.
It's going to be up with the rig, it's not going to be on the floor, so it's pointless to put a switch on top. Who's going to do this? Well, maybe somebody would want to, but this is partly, the inspiration is partly the result of just having sample parts all over the place all the time. I always thought this auto ignition style stainless steel switch was cool looking, and that eventually I'd find a way to use it. I've had a few different versions of it. I've got my Esquire, it's got one that I use for a kill switch.
Oh yeah.
I just thought they were cool looking. And when I put it on here, I thought it was going to be way too modern looking. But after it's been on there a while, it's just slightly, you know, oxidized a little bit. So yeah, so it kind of looks like it belongs on it now.
Yeah.
And it turned out that our buddy Rob at Tessie Switch, he had a selection of similar type switches on his website, so I called him up and I go, and he had two different sizes, so he sent them to me and we picked that one, and I just thought, we'll just put it right in the middle and we'll call it Cyclops, and that was all there was to it.
All right. So can you explain to us as succinctly as possible, what's it do? What's the Cyclops do?
It's simply a very special application dual AB box.
Okay.
One AB function selects which amp or preamp that your guitar signal is routed to, and the other one selects which signal goes into the power station power amp to drive the speaker. So when you use a head with a power station, you plug the amp's speaker output into the power station amp in, and then you plug the speaker out into your cabinet. That's the extent of the connection that you use speaker cables for. When you're using the power station just as a power amp, standalone power amp, modelers, preamps, whatever, you plug into the line in or the effects return, depending on what the level that's coming out of your preamp or modeler is at. Most people don't really understand. You plug it in, you call up a program, you use its basic volume, its default volume, signal output level setting that it's set up with from the factory, and you plug that into something. And so once people started becoming aware that the power station was capable of being used that way, that started conversation about using the power station in this variety of applications. A tube preamp, a solid state preamp, a modeling preamp, a synergy, Syn 1 or Syn 2, all of the possibilities that are out there that you could grab onto. And from there, it went, okay, I heard that I can plug this into the line in, but when I do that, I can't hear the amp anymore.
And did people understand why they couldn't do that? Was they a little bit puzzled?
Yes, and even after we explain it to them, they're puzzled, because it's not that simple. First of all, there's still a lot of people out there that don't really understand how the power station works, and they see the power amp as an accessory. They understand that the power station is some kind of an attenuator, and it has a power amp in it that I can use to power my modeler or whatever. The power amp in the power station is literally the thing that makes the power station why you like it. That's part of the conversation, which then inevitably leads to trying to explain there's a load, there's a power amp, and then there's effects loop in between those two, and the line in gets you in between there. So when your amp is plugged into the load, all the power goes into the load. A small fraction of the signal comes out of that, goes through the effects loop and in to drive the power amp. The line out, or the line in, is in between those, in between the load and the power amp. When you use the line in as an input to access just the power amp for your preamp, you're interrupting the signal that's coming from the load. And that's why you have to unplug it to restore operation to the amp. So we gather from that there's a lot of people that have their rig set up and they don't want to do this with cables. I totally understand that. And there are also products out there that allow you to do a workaround. And we did a video way back in one of the earlier malcontents episodes. I demonstrated using the SYN 1 to use the SYN 1 as a preamp for the ether amp. Mm-hmm. It was like, oh, wait a minute, now the ether sounds like a deliverance. What the hell happened? So there are products out there that will do that. There are loop switchers out there that will do that, but they're a lot more money. And they're a lot more sophisticated than what you really need for this application. And what people are asking for is this specific solution to this specific problem. And I went, okay. The answer we had been giving people was, you need an AB switch to switch between the amps, and you need another AB switch to switch whatever signal is going into the power amp of the power station. To do that, you have to have a preamp out, and then the way you get the amplifier signal out is coming out of the line out, plugging it into an AB switch, and then plugging it back into the line in. So now that AB switch selects between the preamp out and the signal coming off of the load going into the power amp. So from there, the next logical step in the thought process was put them both in one box. The people that we suggested doing that original 2 AB box method, some of them were thrilled. Oh, I did that. It worked great. Thanks for your help. Appreciate it. Now my problem is that I've got 2 AB boxes I got to switch. And then enter the more complex loop selector again. And then MIDI, to do all this simple thing where just, right? And then the other problem that arose out of doing that was an AB box, just a regular passive AB box, will connect the input jack of your preamp to the input jack of your amp. Instant ground loop. So, okay, now you need an isolation transformer between one or both of those signal inputs to break the possibility of a ground loop. And the end result was the Cyclops, the box that does all of the things that you wanted to do and solves all the problems that you're going to have that you haven't encountered yet. You haven't even thought about, am I going to have that problem? It already solves them before you even get there. If it was 10 people that asked us to do that, over the course of 2 years, it wouldn't have existed. But it wasn't 10.
It was pervasive.
Yeah, it was weekly.
Wow.
You know what you guys didn't put into the power station that is really necessary? I think they're initially thinking it can all go in the existing box. Until you look at the back of it and go, no, there isn't any real estate left for that. The box has to get taller, wider, whatever. There has to be another version. And if there's going to be another version, then there's a whole different thought process that's going to go into what do we really need to put in there and why. So it's really best to have this as a separate standalone accessory. We just put it out there and figured, okay, this is what you've been asking for. We're giving you exactly what you asked for, and we're going to see what we get back.
So it hasn't been out for that long, but are you getting feedback yet where people are maybe misunderstanding its function? Well,
they're actually just starting to hit stores now.
Okay.
In very small quantities. So are we getting feedback from people that are running into complications? No, not yet. We will. I did see a couple of commenters saying, the bummer is that now you lose the line out on the power station because you use it for the Cyclops. And no, that's not true, because there are two line outs in parallel. One of them is the unbalanced line out, which the Cyclops uses, and the other one is the XLR out, the balanced transformer isolated one that you would plug into your DAW. And the fact that it's transformer isolated means that it will eliminate any potential ground loops. So that's the one that you would want to use anyway. And that's what we're going to see. That's what we've started to see, and that's what we're going to see. People that are looking at the box, looking at the description, and not downloading the manual and seeing it all configured right in front of your eyes. It just goes like this. Those become immediately apparent once you look at the manual and some of the demo setups that people did.
Yeah, the first time I set it up, I felt it was just, an exercise in the hip bones connected to the throttle. You just go one connection at a time.
Yeah.
Because it is a little, when I first looked at it during the last Malcontents episode, and we were joking about, that's a lot of cables. And so when you approach it, you're kind of thinking that, right? But when you actually sit down I thought it was really, it was just an intuitive process.
Yeah, after I first hooked it up into my rig, and I went, people are going to perceive that as complex, but it's actually really simple. But the second thought I had was, wow, I used every single input and output on this rig. Isn't that awesome? Because when you make things that are flexible, that will do different things, you're going to use these two jacks for this, or these other two for that, and they're all there to be used, and nobody uses all of them. And I went, we accidentally made a product that you use all the ins and outs simultaneously, and they all function correctly in concert with each other. That, to me, was a milestone, really. It was like, there actually is a practical everyday use for every single one of these ins and outs to be used simultaneously.
And a reason for them to exist.
Exist.
All right, there you have it. I guess we're done.
We're done.